Hey, hi guys. Good morning. Guys, am I audible?
Sir, you are audible.
All right, thank you. All right, so any questions? Today we are going to cover a new topic. Hmm, here you go. All right. So today we will be discussing on the new algorithm known as decision trees. Just to give you a context, basically decision trees is considered as to be as one of the most important and sophisticated algorithms in decision trees in machine learning. So I'll tell you why we generally prefer decision trees is because what it does is it actually breaks the problem into sub problems, and that's how it tries to come up with a solution. So that's the reason it is named as trees, because in a tree, if you see that we have a branches, right? And that's how, then again in the branch we will have sub branch and again sub branch, again sub branch. And ultimately, in the terminal or in the end, we will get a leaf. Okay. So here also what we have to construct is we have to construct a tree like a structure where it will break the problem and in the beginning, and then again break the problem and again sub problem. So like that it will create a tree kind of a structure, and in the end there would be a conclusion to that particular problem. And in the real scenarios, again, as I've been mentioning, right? So every algorithm has been evolved from our human lives, the way we think, the way we construct our thoughts, and then accordingly we take the decision. The same way these algorithms have been designed and structured. So, for example, let's suppose if you have to come up with a solution of a very complex problem, right? So typically what we do is rather than directly jumping into any single conclusion, what generally we do is we break that problem into sub-problem, right? And what could be the most important factor which is contributing to that particular problem? There could be multiple reasons for a particular problem, right? So we will try to tackle the most complex one first, right? And then we find the solution. Then we get into a next problem, then the next sub problem, the next sub problem, and eventually we try to solve that entire problem. So, for example, and that's how we take a decision. Uh, let's suppose now you have a problem. I'll give you a very generic problem. For example, let's suppose you have got 4 or 5 offer letters. Now you are in a big problem that which one to choose. You have to take the decision, right? So, firstly, you will consider the most important factor, and based on that, you will choose the selection. You will make the selection. So, for example, now the most important component of choosing any job offer would be your salary, right? So, let's suppose salary is the first factor which you have considered for choosing a particular offer. So, you have 5 offers in hand. Okay, and the first one would be the salary. Let's suppose uh, you have put a condition here like wherever I get more than 10 lakhs, I will choose that offer. Okay, so it would have two conditions output. One would be yes or other would be no, right? So let's suppose out of 5, 4 offers fall here and one offer as less than 10 lakhs. Okay. So this particular offer is ruled out. You will not bother about this offer because it is not meeting your this particular condition. Now still you have 4 offers. Still the problem is not solved, right? So now you will choose the next, best factor, okay, which help you to decide which offer to choose. So, for example, you are more interested to work in MNCs or the big company. So you will put a condition like if the company is equal to MNC, right? Again, you will have to output yes or no. Let's suppose out of four offers, three offers are from MNC and one offer is from non-MNC or a startup or something, a small company. Okay. So again, this you will ruled off. Okay, ruled out. Now you are left with three offers, right? Again, you will choose the next best factor of choosing. It could be a distance from your home. Okay. So for example, it should be less than 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers. Okay. Now you have two offers left, okay, and one offer you will reject. I'm giving a very hypothetical situation, okay. And now the another condition would be, for example, what it could be, man. Just you tell me what could be the another factor which you may think of. Distance, MNC, salary,
Job security.
job security. Yes. Job security is something you won't be able to understand because if it's an MNC, so definitely how you will understand whether there would be any security, job security or not in the beginning. Think about something else. Probably the role, right? Or designation or something like that. Okay. So let's suppose you got a very senior role here when compared senior role you are looking at. So finally you will left with one offer here, one offer here. Here you are getting a better role when compared to in this particular offer. So you will finally accept this. So now where you had a big problem of choosing the offer in the beginning out of five offers, what you did, and this something, okay, I have put it in a tree like structure, but this everything unconsciously it happens in your mind, right? And in most of different kinds of decision making process, typically we think in this way, right? And again, for example, in the banking sector, if the loan has to be approved for the loan approval process, again there also there would be a kind of a checklist. Okay, so based on the priority, based on the importance, even in the banks or anywhere in any financial institutions, they will also check the most important factor first, and then they look into some other factors too. Okay, so for example, for the loan approval, first would be the income level, right? So first they will look at the income, then they will look at the job profile, then they will look out for some credit history. So like that, again, this entire decision making process, the problem is divided into sub problems, and at every node of this particular tree, a particular sub problem will be tackled, and based on that, decision is being made. So this is the whole intuition behind this decision tree. Now there is a mathematical way of computing this particular thing. Here we are deciding on our own, like what is the important, what is the condition. But these conditions will be determined by the algorithm itself. So you need not to go and manually decide on the conditions, which is more important, which is the least important. Automatically, these algorithms will identify these conditions and it will construct a tree. So that's the reason this algorithm has been named as decision trees, because at every node the decision is being made. Okay. And collectively, based on this particular tree, the final decisions are made. So for example, now let's suppose, okay, you constructed this tree and suddenly there is another offer, sixth offer, you got it. Now it would be easy for you to decide now, because you have now this would be the predictive model now. Okay, this tree. So in the sixth offer, you will just check the conditions, and you will see, okay, where it will lie. Okay, and based on that, you will take the decision. Okay. So that's how this decision tree works. And typically the tree looks like this, but here in this particular algorithm, it is called a inverted tree, where the root node would be on the top and the branches would be below. And then finally, there is a leaf node. We call this a terminal node as a leaf node, and this leaf node will help you to make the decision, final decision. Okay, so we will talk about all those terminology, but before that, let me give you this example. So here, for example, I have these patients' data. Okay, so I have a patient ID, I have their age, gender, blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and all those things. And I have to predict which drug needs to be given to a particular patient based on their details. Okay, um, based on their vitals and demographic details. So, for example, this patient one who is having these characteristics, he has been given drug A. So, while the patient three with these characteristics, he has been given drug B. Now, this is all the historical data, and I have to train the model on top of it. Now, once the model is trained, if new patient comes in, okay, with these characteristics, okay, the model should predict, which drug needs to be provided or needs to be given to this particular patient. So I'll take this historical data and I will do the model training. I'll construct this decision tree, and based on this decision tree, I will make the prediction. So this is the whole process of model building. Now let's see, how this tree would be constructed, okay, on the historical data. Now, for example, let's suppose you have considered age. Okay, so now in the age, we have three categories, right? Young, middle age, and the senior. So here age has three categories: young, middle age, and senior. Okay. And for the middle age, it has been seen in the historical data, all the people with the middle age category, they have given drug B only. Okay. So it has came up with this kind of a rule. So this decision tree is called as a rule-based algorithm. So there is a rule which will be defined at every node, and based on that rule, the decision will be made, right? So when we have looked into people with young age, okay, they have been given both the drugs A and B. But if it has been further looked at, um, in the young age, basically the female um, patients, they have been given drug A and the male patients have given drug B. So this is the another rule. Okay, if the age is young, but if the patient is female, give the drug A or else give drug B for male, right? And for the senior, it's not the gender, but it is some other factor which was considered as to be important, which is cholesterol levels. If the cholesterol levels is high, then a patient has been given drug A. Otherwise, if it's normal, then given drug B. Okay. So this is how this algorithm will identify the rules and it will construct the rules. Now, it can be further from here, it can be further broken into multiple branches, and the tree will keep on growing until it will find the distinct rule, for making the decision which drugs needs to be given. Okay. So basically, these are called as leaf nodes, the terminal, the end. So this is known as the root node, from where it will start, root node. Okay. And from there, the branches will be built. Okay. And these are called as decision nodes. Okay. So, and after the decision nodes, there would be further branches. And then that's how, it will keep on creating the nodes and then branches. And ultimately, in the end, the node at which the decision is can be made, those are known as leaf node. Okay. So how this decision tree works, this algorithm works is it will choose an attribute from the data set, and it first calculate the significance of that attribute. So we have been discussing in various algorithms, right? These algorithms, like for example, logistic regression, we talked, linear regression, we talked about. So basically, these algorithm will try to find out the significance of the variables, right? In the linear regression, the logistic regression, basically by looking at the p-value, we can understand which variables are important, right? So here also, based on certain criteria or certain approach or certain process, this algorithm will calculate the significance of the attribute. So currently we have 4 or 5 variables, right? For every variable, it will try to find out how much significant that particular variable is. And if the significance is high for a particular variable, that variable will be chosen first, and based on that, it will take the decision. So in our example, also in the offer letter, we have chosen the salary as the most important factor, right? So we have kind of ranked those factors accordingly. So here, decision tree algorithm, it will rank in a similar way, but there would be a certain method and certain technique through which it will identify the significance of those variables. And once it identifies the significance of that particular variable, it will split the data based on the value of the best attribute. And once it is split, then again it will go and pick up the next most significant attribute, then again split the data based on the value. And then that's how this is a repetitive process. It will keep on repeating until it reaches to the terminal node where the final decision can be made. Okay. So this is also known as heuristic algorithm. Heuristic means repetitive. Okay. It's like keep on, it will repeat on its own, you know, to get into the final node, to reach to the final node. Now, how we build how this particular algorithm will build the entire tree, okay, and how it will find out the best attribute. Let's look into that aspect now. So, for example, now these are all the different patients, and the circle means these are the patients which have been given drug A, and the triangular ones are the patients which are given drug B. So firstly, this is a root node where you have all the data, entire data here. And here we have to choose which, this algorithm has to choose which attribute or which variable is more significant. Let's suppose first it has chosen cholesterol um, as an attribute. And now cholesterol has two values, high and normal. Okay. Now in the high, we have 3 patients with drug A and 5 patients with drug B. In the normal node, we have 2 patients with drug A and 4 patients with drug B. Now, can we make any decision here in either in this node or in this node? So, what is the proportion of drug A here? It is 3/7, right? It's for drug A. For drug B, it is 4/7. So whatever the proportion, I think it would be somewhere how much? Some 40%, let's suppose it we take it, and this is 60%. Okay. So it is 40% and 60% proportion, right? Of drug A and drug B. So here it is 2/6 and B is 4/6. Okay. So this is, let's suppose, 30% and 70%. So here the proportions are kind of mixed proportion, right? And here if anybody is having a high cholesterol, I cannot decide whether to give drug A or drug B because I have a mixed proportion here, right? So I cannot confidently, I cannot go and decide which drug needs to be given if somebody is having a high cholesterol or the normal cholesterol. So this particular attribute alone cannot help me to make a final decision. Okay, so let's have it till here. Now let's take another variable as a gender. So we have female and male. Now here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So drug A as 1 by 8 and B as 7 by 8. Okay. So here it is like 10% and 90%. So here the 90% of the patients who are female has been given drug B. Here at least I am little bit confident. Okay, if any patient comes in and if the female patient comes in, okay, I can give that person drug B with 90% confidence. Okay. In the male, it is A is 4 by 6 and B is 2 by 6. Okay, it's again 30% or 70% something like that. Okay. So at least here, one decision I can make in this particular node. Probably here in this particular node, I may require one more attribute to further decide whether to give drug A or drug B. So this is in this particular node, I cannot make a decision, but here in this particular node, I can make a decision because 90% of the observations are belong to drug B here. Okay. So if you compare the previous attribute cholesterol with this attribute seems to be better when compared to the previous one, right? So that's the whole logic here, which this decision tree will make. And from the historical data, it will see that which particular attribute is giving me a good split, okay, is giving me a good nodes. So these nodes where where I have where I will get one majority category, okay, those nodes are called as pure nodes. So in this case, there is less impurity. Impurity means if you have this kind of scenario, like if you have equal distribution of multiple categories in a particular node, then those are called as impure nodes. And we have certain measures which will calculate this impurity in the particular node. So if I have a proportion like 5%, 95%, if the difference is large between the two categories, then those are considered as pure nodes. While if we have a category like 55%, 44, 45%, something like this, then it is considered as impure because you cannot make a decision in this kind of scenario. You cannot make a decision where you have two categories with 40% and 60% proportion, right? Or 30% or 70% of proportion. So, so based on this, we will select the attribute. The attribute which has more predictiveness, less impurity. Impurity means you understood, right? So if you have one particular category as a majority category in a particular node, then that is known as less impurity. And there is a measure known as entropy. Okay, so with this word, probably you may you might have heard about this particular word entropy in physics, right? So this entropy is a measure of randomness, okay, or it's a measure of in this case it's a measure of impurity. So if the value of this entropy is lower for a particular nodes, okay, then that particular attribute is considered as to be a significant attribute. Okay, so as we have seen that at this particular node we can make a decision because here most of the observations falls under drug B, but for the male node, we couldn't able to make a decision because that was more of a impure node. So we have considered one more attribute, cholesterol, and then further broken that particular problem. And here, if you see that any male patient, if that person's cholesterol is high, we have seen in the historical data that all of them has been given drug A. Okay, so here A is 100% and B is 0%. Now this is a completely pure node. It's a completely pure node because you do not have any other category in this particular node apart from this particular category drug A, right? So it is completely pure. So here also, if the cholesterol is normal, they have been given drug B, and this is also a complete pure node. So if you reach to this particular node, which is completely pure, you can, with 100% confidence, you can make the decision because that's had been seen in the historical data, right? So if you have this kind of a tree, so based on the gender, you can make the decisions, right? If they are female, you can go and directly give them a drug B. If they are male, then look out for cholesterol. If the cholesterol is high, then give a drug A. Otherwise, give drug B. Okay, so that's how you can take the decisions based on this particular tree. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is known as pure node. Okay, and gradually, if you see that from the top till the bottom, the impurity is decreasing, right? So earlier here the impurity was like 70% and 30%, and from here you gradually it got reduced, and in this particular node you have 100% uh, representation of this particular category, drug B. And here it is 100% representation of drug A. So overall, this algorithm, what it will try to do is it will try to reduce this impurity, okay, from the root node till the terminal node, so that the decision can be made more accurately and more confidently. So now what is entropy? Okay, as I mentioned, it's a measure of randomness and uncertainty. What uncertainty means where you are not confident, which where you are not certain, okay, what decision to be made. So if in a particular node you have 70% representation of one category and 30% representation of another category, you cannot make a confidently you cannot make a decision, right? So there would be an uncertainty, there would be a high uncertainty. Let's suppose the highest uncertainty would be if there are equal proportion of both the categories, 50% and 50%, right? In this case, you cannot make any decision. Okay, so for example, when you toss a coin and you are not sure whether you will get a head or a tail, so there is no certainty that you will get heads or tails in that case. So here also, if you land up onto a node where you have equal representation of the categories, then you cannot make any decision, okay, based on that particular rule. So this entropy is a measure which will measure this uncertainty in a particular node. Okay, so the lower the entropy, the less uniform distribution. So this is a uniform distribution. This is also a kind of uniform distribution. If you get 90% and 10% kind of a distribution, that is not uniform, right? There is a big difference between the proportion of these two categories, right? So if there is a less uniformity, okay, in the distribution, then that particular node is considered as a pure node. And in that particular node, the entropy would be lower. So for example, here in this case, if you have in any node, if you have one observation in drug A and seven observation of drug B, then the entropy is low. Okay, because the drug A would be around 10% and this is 90%, right? If in any particular node, if there are three observations in drug A and five observations in drug B, then probably it would be how much? 40% and 60%, right? So here the entropy would be high. Okay, and I will tell you what is the formula of entropy. So here the entropy would be high because there is a kind of a uniform distribution of these two categories in this particular node. Entropy would be perfectly zero, okay, if there is only one majority category which is appearing in a particular node. So in this case, only drug B observations or drug B data points are there in this particular data node, in this particular decision node. You do not have any other category in this. So this is a completely pure because there is a zero representation of drug A and 100% representation of drug B. So in this case, entropy is 0. So if you get this kind of node anywhere in your tree, then that would consider as a terminal node, because here you can make better decisions through this particular node. If you have equal representation of the both the categories, then as I mentioned, it is a 50% scenario, 50% scenario. The entropy would be equal to 1. So this entropy lies between 0 and 1. If the entropy is 1, so that means highly impure node. And if the entropy is 0, that means it's a pure node. So this is the measure of entropy, is a measure of randomness or uncertainty, or you can call as measure of impurity. Okay, so based on this entropy, this particular algorithm will decide which attribute is important and which attribute is significant, and that's how it will choose those attributes, and accordingly it will construct that particular tree. So basically, this is the formula. So it is proportion of category A into, this is minus proportion of category A, or you can call it as probability of A. So what is the probability of getting drug A here? It is 1 by 8, right? So, and even that is the proportion. What is the probability of getting drug B? It is 7 by 8, right? So it is the probability of A into log to the base 2 times probability of A, then minus probability of B into log to the base 2 of probability B. If you have more than 2 categories, then you will have one more. Let's suppose I have 3 categories, then you can add more categories to it, right? So like that, you can calculate the entropy of a particular node. Okay. So that's the formula of entropy. Now let's take this example and let's calculate. Okay. Overall, at the first, this is my root node where I'm considering all the data points of my data. Okay, and I'm calculating the root node. I'm calculating the entropy at the root node. So for that, for the entire data, I will firstly find out what is PA and PB. Right, I have only two categories here. So PA is, I will go and first take the count of all the drug A observations and then divide by total number of observations. So I have total observations 14. Okay, and out of 14, drug A is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So drug A, PA is 5 by 14. So drug B is 9 by 14. Okay, so I'll just substitute these values into this particular equation. I got the entropy as 0.940. So you see that at the root node, my entropy is pretty high. It is close to 1. Okay, so that means there is non-uniform distribution of these two categories in the first node. I cannot make the decision at this particular root node. So I need some decision nodes to be um, identified so that I can make a better decision. So here the entropy is 0.940. And as I mentioned, overall, this algorithm, what it will do is it will try to minimize this impurity. So there is a high impurity in this particular node. So overall, what it will do is it will try to reduce the impurity. Now, let's take the gender as first attribute. So with the gender, it has segregated the data into male and female. Now we got this representation. So if I segregate all the female, so this is the highlighted ones are all the female. So in this also I have certain drug A patients and drug B patients. So in this I have 3 drug B patients and 4 drug A patients. So here in this particular node, I have the entropy as 0.985. So here, if you see earlier I had entropy as 0.940. It got further increased to 0.985. However, but let me see the other node. Is that particular node is having a lower entropy or not? So here the entropy is 0.592. It's better than the previous. So overall, what I will do is now overall for this particular split, I will calculate the entropy. Like what is the overall entropy after the split? Not, I'll not compare with one single node. Because if I am considering this particular attribute, what is the overall reduction in my entropy? That something is important because see, okay, it's fine in one particular node, I may not able to take the decision, but what about other? Okay, if here I can take the decision, then I will, for this particular node, I will choose some other attribute and then I will construct a further branch, on top of this particular node. So, so how you will calculate the overall is, one second. Yeah. So this is the formula, to calculate the overall entropy of the node. So here, uh, so this is 3 plus 4, 7, right? And the total number of observation in the root node was 14, and here it is 7. Okay. So I'll take 7 by 14 for this particular node and I multiply with this entropy. So why I'm taking this 7 by 14 is, let's suppose majority of the observations are falling here. Out of 14, let's suppose 10 observations are falling here and 4 observations are falling here. Then I should give less weightage to this entropy and higher weightage to this entropy, right? Because maximum observations are falling in this node. So that's the reason we go and find out the weighted entropy of this particular split. So here is a equal proportion. So 7 by 14 into 0.985 plus 7 by 14 into 0.592. So overall, this would be my entropy after the split. So earlier I had 0.940 and then I got this particular weighted entropy after the split. So the reduction of the entropy overall is 0.151. I hope you are following, right? Now, instead of gender, if I go with cholesterol, okay, now I will go and find out what is the overall entropy here. So here, 8 observations are falling in this particular node and 6 observations are falling in this particular node. So 8 by 14 into 0.811 plus 6 by 14 into 1. So this is a completely pure node. Okay. So here my entropy is pretty high. Okay. So here uh, the reduction in the entropy is 0.048. Okay. So, one second. Yeah. So how much is so now the difference between entropy before minus entropy after is called as information gain. So wherever the tree with a higher information gain after the split happens, so we will choose that particular attribute. So if the question is whether to choose this attribute or this attribute, it depends on the information gain. So what is the formula of information gain? The entropy before split minus weighted entropy after split. Okay. So if the information gain, if the difference is high, so that means my model is gaining more information, right? And that's how this whole algorithm is becoming more intelligent to make the decision. So at every split, if the information gain is significantly high, so in that case, wherever it is high, I will go ahead and consider that particular attribute. Okay. So here the weighted entropy is going down. Okay, so entropy after the split has to be lower. Okay, so that I can get a pure node. Okay, if it is 0, then it's a high, and my information gain would would be more better. Okay, so in this case, it's not a pure, sorry, it is an impure node. So where the entropy is pretty high. Okay, so I have 3 of drug B and 3 of drug A. So here the entropy is pretty high. So there's a reason I am not getting much information gain here. Rather, I'm getting the better information gain here in this particular, uh, for this particular attribute. So if I have to choose among these two attributes, I will choose this particular attribute as a significant attribute. Okay. So entropy is the most popular and the most used measure for decision tree. But apart from this entropy, there are many other measures like we have Gini index, okay, Gini score, and we also have chi-square, which we have discussed right during the proportion tests. So even go we can go ahead with this chi-square value also, okay, to determine the impurity of the node. Okay, so I'll take a pause. Let me know anybody has any question so far.
Sir, in the
Mm-hmm.
previous slide, we have calculated the weighted entropy, right?
Yes,
So, if the weighted entropy is high, then the information gain will be low as per the equation.
yes.
But
So see,
information gain should be high.
yeah, so see here the entropy is earlier the entropy is 0.940. The weighted entropy here is this. Okay, this one. Okay, so if you take the difference between entropy before with the entropy after, so because see at this particular node, my entropy was at the root node, it's 0.940, and the overall objective of this algorithm is to reduce the overall entropy. So after the split at this so here at this point, what is the overall entropy that we are calculating through this weighted entropy, right? So if you calculate it would come somewhere, okay, point how much, whatever, okay. So difference is coming out to be as 0.151. So we have to concentrate on this particular value. So this is my information gain. So entropy before minus entropy after. If you find out that difference, then that is known as information gain. So for this particular attribute, my information gain is 0.151. Now I will compare this information gain with other attribute. So what is the information gain I'm getting here? It is 0.048. Where I'm getting more information gain, I'm getting here for this particular attribute. So this is how this information gain will help you to choose the best attribute. So if I have this, I have a root node here. Now I have to select one particular variable here, attribute to construct the tree. So here the first attribute what I can choose is cholesterol rather than choosing a gender. Okay, now I will split the data. Now here I will come here. So the way I have chosen the attribute at this particular root node, the same mechanism I will use it for choosing the next attribute at this particular node. Then again I will construct a tree. If it is these are if this any node is pure, then I will leave it. If it is impure, then again I will go and build a separate branch, underneath it. So like that, it will keep on growing, and wherever it will find the pure node, it will leave it. If there is an impure node, if the entropy is high, then again it will go and choose the next best attribute, and then again it will build the tree. So as I mentioned, it is a heuristic process. It will keep on adding more attributes until and unless it reaches to the purest node, which will be called as a terminal node. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now a quick recap of this. So it is a supervised learning technique. Okay. Now you have seen that, okay, you need to have an output variable. Then only you can decide, okay, whether your node is pure node or not. Okay. So it comes under supervised learning technique. It can be used both for classification and regression. So in the regression, what it does is in any particular node, it will take the average value. Okay, and if the average value is closest to the actual value, then it will stop there. Otherwise, it will again keep on splitting the node, to reach to a point where it is closer to the actual value. Okay, so there instead of entropy, we will go with the variance. Okay, variance calculation. So variance, right? So that variance measure we will use for regression. But typically, this decision tree is primarily used for classification and less for regression. So as I mentioned, mostly it is preferred for solving classification problems. Even in the real scenario, real world, out of 100 use cases, you will find more than 80% of the use cases would be a classification problem. So rather than predicting the actual value, people would prefer, you know, to understand, in which category it will fall. Okay. So mostly 80% or more than that would be a classification problems in the real scenarios. So it is a tree structure classifier where internal nodes represent the features of the data set. Features means attributes or variables. Branches represent the decision rules. At every branch, there would be some kind of a rule which will be identified, and each leaf node represent the outcome. Leaf node, you can call leaf node, or you can call it as decision node or the terminal node. Okay. So in a decision tree, there are two nodes which are decision node and the leaf node. So decision node is, for example, if the cholesterol is high or normal. Okay. So this is your decision node. So at this stage, it is deciding whether a particular patient is having a high cholesterol or the normal. And then it is creating a further node. Now, if you can make the final decision here, then this is considered as a leaf node. Okay. And if you can't, then again it becomes a decision node. And again, here it will identify some more attribute, other attribute, and based on that, again, it will split the data. So decision nodes are used to make any decision and how multiple branches and have multiple branches, where leaf nodes are the output of those decisions and do not contain any further branches. So if it is a terminal node or the leaf node, it will not contain any other branch. Okay, it will consider as the purest node where the final decision can be made. If it is a decision node, then it can be further divided into multiple branches. Decisions or the test are performed on the basis of the features of the given data set. It is a graphical representation for getting all the possible solution to the problem decision based on the given condition. So here, this entire algorithm will construct a tree, and that tree will be considered as a model. Okay. So earlier, you might be thinking that model is always in the form of equation, right? But it is not. It here in this case, it is the form of a tree, right? And if that tree is constructed based on that tree, okay, the predictions can be made, and that would be considered as a model. In the naive base, that likelihood table is considered as a model. Okay, so where you give any data points based on that likelihood table, it will decide what is the probability of the success or the failure. Okay, then their likelihood is considered as a knowledge, is considered as a model. In the naive base, there is no model as such. This is a training data set itself is considered as a model there. Okay, without that training data set, that algorithm cannot able to predict. So every algorithm, if you are seeing, it has a different structure, it has a different intuition and approach to solve a particular problem, right? So so it is called a decision tree because similar to a tree, it starts with a root node, which expands on the further branches and construct a tree-like structure. So it is also called decision tree, also called as CART algorithms. So means classification and regression tree algorithm. Okay, somewhere it may be written as CART. Okay. Decision tree simply asks a question, and based on the answer yes or no, it further split the tree into subtrees. Okay, that you have seen. So it looks like this: decision node, root node, subtree. These are the decision nodes, and these are the leaf nodes. Okay. This is the terminology. You can go through it. Okay. So root node, leaf node, splitting, branch subtree, pruning. Pruning is a technique which you can use, to fine tune this particular decision tree. So one issue which you may face in decision trees, let's suppose you are dealing with more number of features, like 50 or 60 or 100 number of 100 features. uh, then the tree is going to become too large. Okay, because every time it will pick up one attribute and it will try to find out the best split and then try to improve the entropy, and overall the tree would be so large, okay, if the attributes are more. To avoid that, we use this pruning technique. What is this pruning? So how we prune? So if somebody does gardening, okay, so what we do is, at frequently we see that if there is too many branches coming out, okay, then we will cut those branches, okay, to maintain the shape and size of the tree, right? So this is also one such technique, which is pruning, where we remove the unwanted branches from the tree. Because firstly, the tree would be too large. It will take a lot of time, to train the model or to construct that tree. The second is, like, if we leave it like that, there could be a chance that that particular model would become an overfitted model. It would try to fit so well on the training data set, that, on the test data set it may not perform better. So it may reach to a point where the model will learn too much from the data, and it may lead to a overfitting problem. So sometimes, what we do is we apply pruning so that it will stop at some level. Okay, even if it is giving 90% or 80% accuracy, still it is fine. But we will make sure that it has generalized all the patterns properly, and it is giving me a good results on the test data set also. If you leave it like that, it will try to achieve 100% accuracy. For every scenario, it will try to create a separate branch. Okay, so as it is a heuristic process, if you leave it like this, the algorithm will try to find out the best terminal node which can give you the 100% confidence in making the decision. And that's a major problem with this decision tree. So that's the reason sometimes we have to stop, or we have to limit that tree by giving certain restrictions. Either you can give it before training the model. You can set those limitations, saying that I need only 5 branches, or I need 6 branches, or stop at a point where in any node, if you get 5 observations, then stop it. Do not split after that. Okay, so like that, there are certain parameters which you can use, and you can limit the size of the tree. Or else you can allow the tree to grow completely, and then from the bottom, you identify which of the branches are unwanted branches. What is unwanted branches? If the information gain is not significant, if the information gain is very small, but still it has went and constructed that particular branch. Okay, so I will go and remove those particular branches, because those are not significant branch. Okay, I'm getting very minimal improvement in the overall entropy. So those kind of unwanted branch, I can go and prune it by using this pruning technique. Okay, so step one is, begin the tree with the root node, then find out the best attributes. So we call it as attribute selection measure, ASM. So you can use different attributes. So we have seen using entropy and information gain, and then divide that particular root node into subsets, and generate the decision node which contain the best attributes. And in step 5, again recursively means recurrent, or it's like iterative process. Make new decision trees, and then you continue this whole process till you reach to a stage where you cannot further uh, uh, split the node. You cannot classify the nodes. That is called as final node or the leaf node. So this is something, okay, we have discussed the example. Okay. Yeah, so this is also important. So one measure is Gini index, but usually, as I mentioned, most popularly it is entropy. So index is also have a similar kind of a formula as entropy. So this is that formula. It's 1 minus PI. PI means uh, proportion of a particular category, and Q means proportion of another category. If you have multiple categories, then you can add the proportion of those categories and take the square of it. Okay. So it is a measure of impurity or the purity based on creating a decision tree. An attribute with a low Gini index should be preferred, just like entropy. Even the Gini index has to be low. It only creates binary splits, and CART algorithm use the Gini index to create binary splits. Uh, yeah, so major disadvantage with Gini score is Gini index is you can only apply this index if there is only binary split, if only there is only two nodes, right? Okay, you can only add only two categories, not more than that. So my bad. Okay, so it is a probability of one category, and this is a probability of another category. Okay, and then we have entropy. We have seen this. Okay, so this is the another method. Now, information gain, we have seen it is the difference between entropy before and entropy after. So this is the important measure which will decide which attribute to select, and it also help you to prune the tree, okay, to remove the unwanted branches from the tree, which will avoid overfitting problem. So here for pruning, okay, we basically delete the unnecessary nodes, okay, from the tree in order to get the optimal decision tree. So for that, we use this uh, cost complexity para pruning, which is known as complexity parameter. And now this complexity parameter is something, okay, we'll show you in Python, where you will set a particular value, and this complexity parameter will be compared with the information gain. That means, for example, I'll set a threshold like information gain as 0.01, okay, as a threshold. If in any branch the information gain is less than that, so it will go and remove that particular branch. So that means it is not a significant branch where the entropy is getting reduced significantly, right? So, so this would be your complexity parameter in a very layman terms. Okay. So, yeah, so if a too large tree increases the risk of overfitting, and a small tree may not capture all the important features, right? So this is the problem, right? If you take the big too large tree, then it may take capture all the attributes, and finally, it will able to give you a better accuracy, but there would be a risk of overfitting. But if it is a small tree, then all the important features may not be considered, may not be captured. So therefore, a technique that decreases the size of the learning tree without reducing the accuracy is known as pruning, right? So here what we will do is we will construct a tree completely, and then from the bottom, okay, we will remove just the unwanted branches. So that is all about decision tree, guys. So I'll stop here. Let me know if you have any questions, and tomorrow we'll see the use case. Any questions? Is it clear to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then thank you. Then please revise this particular topic, and tomorrow we will see how we can do this, how we can train this model in Python. Okay. All right, guys, and thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.